2011 was a fun year. It's always an interesting experience to go to Alaska, and it was one of our first, maybe second roll of the year. It was just outside of Fairbanks, and of course, it kind of rained when we got there, which happens every time we're there. But it doesn't take long for fire to pick up there. And so we chased some fire there for a few days, but where things got real interesting was we ended up in a spike camp midway through with about 5 other crews, some miscellaneous shot crews along with some Type 2 crews, some native crews in there. And we started having a bear problem, black bears to be specific. And the first instance was we left a guy back in camp. He kind of cleaned up some of the trash, got some of the food ready for that evening meal, and he was back there, and we were just getting ready to hike back towards spike camp, and he called our soup over the radio, and he said there's a bear in camp. And of course we left a saw back there to cut some firewood, and just saw the soup calmly. He said, well, just start up the saw and scare it off. It's just a black bear, no big deal. And he gets back on. He's a rookie at this time. He's stuttering. Well, it's next to the saw. And so all of a sudden, we're hiking behind the soup, and our speed kind of gets faster and faster. We're kind of double timing it now and running down there. And as we get within maybe 100 yards of the spike camp, he orders our saw teams in line to fire up their saws and start throttling as we're running down towards the camp. Just hearing the fear in his voice. And so that was the first for a lot of the guys, having a bear experience and getting them kind of excited. Well, as it went on, it just kind of became more of a nuisance. These bears kept showing up in the camp, and it didn't matter what we did to the food. We'd hang it from the trees, we'd bury it, in the permafrost, and they were pretty bold. Like as soon as we'd crawl into bed, you could hear the coolers opening or ruffling through where we had some of the food boxes. And I remember one night in particular, myself and a few of the seniors waiting up, and we kind of each had our weapon of choice, if you will. One, was working on carving a little spear. One had a Pulaski in hand, but we were sitting there pretty quiet, just knowing it was going to come back. And we must have, the sun doesn't really set down there or up there either. And we must have stayed up till probably 2 or 3 in the morning, and no sign of bear. And, sure enough, the next night, you can hear it, and everyone's getting out of the tent real quick, and Soup's in his underwear chasing the bear. And one of the other guys is kind of a beefy guy on the crew. He picks up this big round, and we were really trying to scare the bear. We didn't want to see demise for the bear, because that was the worst case. They had a shooter in camp, and we had already heard a couple that had been killed. So really trying to scare them from humans and our food, so that it didn't come to that end. So one guy threw a big round at the bear. Of course, it only landed about 5 feet in front of him, but it was pretty funny to watch. And then the night after that, we knew that same bear was going to come back. And sometime late in the night, I hadn't heard any noise until just a loud boom. And everyone, of course, crawls out of the tent. And we had a little trail built to a latrine that we had dug for the crew. And this bear had come into camp again, of course, and somebody had called the shooter that was in the spike camp and had shot this bear on that trail going out to our latrine, and literally pulled the trigger, between a bunch of our guys' tents and right in the middle of our camp. So that's always a fun story to share, is with the bears. I hate to see them get killed like that, but they also gave the meat to the native crews who so they tried to do what they could. But yeah, there's always bears in Alaska. So.